That's exactly what Venezuelans heard in the early hours of the morning. President Nicolás Maduro, appearing on state television, stood side by side with his defense minister and told the country that Venezuela was ready to fight. Maduro said, announcing the deployment of military, police and civilian defenses at nearly 300 so-called battlefronts across the country. His words were not just symbolic. The president detailed how soldiers, police officers and even organized civilian groups would be mobilized to guard the nation. He presented the plan as a defensive shield, one meant to counter what he described as escalating threats from abroad. Maduro declared Venezuela is fully prepared for an armed fight if necessary. The language was striking, and so was the timing. Only days earlier, a deadly clash at sea had reignited tensions with Washington. According to US officials, a Venezuelan boat was intercepted in the Caribbean. The Trump administration claimed it was smuggling narcotics. A strike by US forces left the vessel destroyed and 11 people dead. But Washington provided little evidence to support its accusations. For Caracas, the explanation was not only inadequate, it was dishonest. The Maduro government quickly alleged that the incident had nothing to do with drugs. Instead, it accused the United States of staging the clash as part of a larger strategy aimed at regime change. And in one of the most extraordinary claims yet, Maduro accused the White House of faking the footage released after the strike. Maduro charged the video of the strike released by Trump was generated with artificial intelligence. That allegation, while dismissed in Washington, highlights the depth of mistrust. It also shows how the battle between the two nations is being waged not only with weapons, but with narratives. For many Venezuelans, the broader context is deeply alarming. Over the past weeks, the United States has visibly expanded its presence in the region. 10 advanced F-35 fighter jets have been deployed to Puerto Rico, only a short flight away from Venezuelan airspace. To Maduro, these movements are proof that Washington is preparing for confrontation. His response has been to bulk up defenses on Venezuela's western frontier. The government confirmed that 25,000 troops have now been deployed along the border with Colombia, a region it described as fertile ground for smugglers and traffickers. The government stated 25,000 soldiers deployed to what we call a hotbed of trafficking activity. For residents along that border, the sudden influx of soldiers has transformed daily life. Roads are lined with checkpoints, farmers complain of delays, and the shadow of war feels closer than ever. Yet the military maneuvers are only one part of the escalating standoff. Washington has chosen another path of pressure, one aimed directly at Maduro himself. Previously, the US had offered a $15 million reward for information leading to his arrest, accusing him of overseeing a vast drug trafficking conspiracy. Now that figure has been more than tripled. The announcement read, the US is now offering $50 million on drug trafficking charges he flatly denies. For Maduro, the move is more than an insult. It is a declaration that Washington does not recognize his legitimacy. By putting a price on his head, the Trump administration is attempting to isolate him internationally and embolden his opponents domestically. Maduro, for his part, insists the accusations are fabricated, designed to justify foreign interference in Venezuela's sovereignty. What emerges from this back and forth is not simply a military standoff, it is also a propaganda war. For Washington, portraying Venezuela as a narco-state creates a moral justification for sanctions, blockades, and even the use of force. For Caracas, painting the United States as an imperial bully allows Maduro to rally support at home, even among those weary of his rule. The allegation that the strike video was artificially generated may sound improbable abroad, but within Venezuela, where distrust of US intentions runs deep, such claims resonate. They feed a long history of suspicion about outside meddling. Caught in the middle are the citizens of Venezuela. They have already endured years of economic collapse, hyperinflation, and shortages of basic goods. Now, on top of those struggles, they face the possibility of armed conflict. For many, Maduro's declaration that the nation is now a battlefield feels less like a call to arms and more like a reminder of their vulnerability. The sight of troops in the streets, the sound of military drills, and the constant rhetoric of war weigh heavily on daily life. Families wonder if their sons will soon be drafted. Business owners fear that the fragile economy will grind to a halt under the strain of militarization. And parents worry about what kind of future awaits their children in a country perpetually on edge. For the Trump administration, Venezuela remains both a foreign policy challenge and a domestic political issue. On one level, the United States wants to curb the influence of nations like Russia, China, and Iran, all of which have supported Maduro's government. On another level, taking a hard line against a socialist leader appeals to parts of Trump's political base. By doubling the bounty on Maduro and increasing the military footprint in the Caribbean, Washington is signaling a willingness to escalate. But whether the goal is to provoke negotiations or to pave the way for confrontation remains uncertain. The crisis is not confined to Venezuela and the United States. Neighboring countries are watching nervously. Colombia, already a close ally of Washington, finds itself in an especially delicate position. The deployment of Venezuelan troops to its border risks accidental clashes that could quickly spiral. Brazil, another regional heavyweight, has urged caution but is quietly coordinating with Washington. Meanwhile, Caribbean nations, caught between geography and politics, fear that their waters could soon become contested space. Internationally, Russia and China have both condemned US actions, warning that aggression against Venezuela could destabilize the entire hemisphere. Venezuela's current predicament is not without precedent. Latin America has long been the stage for confrontations between local leaders and Washington. From Cuba during the Cold War to interventions in Central America, the memory of US power casts a long shadow. Maduro's defiance is part of that tradition, a deliberate posture of resistance. But this time, the stakes may be higher. With advanced American warplanes stationed nearby and tens of thousands of Venezuelan soldiers mobilized, the possibility of direct conflict feels alarmingly real. As the sun set on the day of Maduro's announcement, Caracas found itself once again at a crossroads. The government had declared its readiness for war. The United States had placed a bounty on its leader, and the people of Venezuela had been told their nation was a battlefield. The voice of the anchor concluded, against this backdrop of military maneuvers, propaganda battles, and rising suspicion, Venezuela finds itself once again at the crossroads of confrontation with Washington, bracing for what could be its most dangerous standoff in years. The situation remains fluid and the future uncertain. Will this confrontation escalate into open conflict? Will diplomacy step in to defuse the crisis? Or will ordinary Venezuelans already suffering from years of hardship be forced to endure yet another chapter of turmoil? What is certain is that the rhetoric has reached new heights. A president has declared his country a battlefield. The United States has raised the stakes with warplanes and rewards. And the world is left to watch as two nations edge closer to a potentially explosive collision.